Your war room for insider news and draft analysis.
Dallas selects Emmitt Smith, running back from Florida.
Last year, he was an absolute beast. My gosh, like, you are an animal. This guy is... Okay, there's a lot of great receivers in the country. He's right there.
Look at this.
C.D. Lamb. He's got breakaway speed.
Deep throw, wide open. C.D. Lamb. It's already his night.
Team 40 Burger is the play. We're a week away, I guess, a week in the rearview mirror of the NFL draft, but C.D. Lamb was the pick at 17, and we are still celebrating here on DallasCowboys.com and the draft show. One final show this 2020 season. Kyle Yeomans, David Hellman, Jeff Kavanaugh back with us. Kevin Turner, KT down in the corner as well. C.D. Lamb was the selection. The Cowboys did it. They did it. Best player available. They went BPA. It's still exciting to talk about. There was the talk earlier about the number selection. I don't care about any of that kind of stuff on the side. I just care that C.D. Lamb is a Dallas Cowboy. He's got a star on the side of his helmet, and it's fun to talk about because now we have endless options whenever it comes to C.D. Lamb. And then, hey, the rest of the draft was pretty great too, guys. You can't really complain about any of it. But Dave, now that we're a week into looking at how this draft class kind of evolved, what are your thoughts, at least at this very moment?
I think I finally got past the point of thinking it was surreal. Like, for 2 or 3 days there, I kept, like, having to pinch myself to think if it really happened. Somebody tweeted me the other day and was like, you were more stressed out about the thought of C.D. Lamb being available and the Cowboys not picking him than the thought of somebody drafting C.D. Lamb. And I was like, absolutely, like 100%, because I did not want to have to try to sell that as a good decision to anyone because it wouldn't have worked. And luckily, the Cowboys didn't make me do that. They drafted the best player available by a long shot, and we can go through the rest of the class. I mean, they got great value everywhere. I think it's the most excited I've been about a draft class in the moment in my time covering the team. Easily.
And Jeff, Captain Trade Down didn't get to ride over the course of the weekend, but I don't think it really mattered because Team 40 Burger's here, right? Are you happy with that?
There were two very strong conflicting emotions inside of me. Captain Trade Down was a finely crafted character over a long period of time, Kyle, but yep. Captain Trade Down was willing to fall on a sword when C.D. Lamb was available, and so Captain Trade Down, I should probably change the name in here because Captain Trade Down is no more. Captain Trade Down doesn't need to exist when C.D. Lamb's on the board at 17 and Trayvon Diggs is on the board at 51. Captain Trade Down doesn't need to ride. He just needs to back on into the distance, and next year when the Cowboys are picking 32nd, maybe Captain Trade Down will be back.
There you go. Captain Trade Down's a team player.
Was Captain Trade Down like your way of protecting your feelings, you know?
Yeah. Same as you were doing. Yeah, Captain Trade Down was my way of bailing out of the 17th pick that was A.J. Terrell or Trayvon Diggs. That was my way out of that pick at 17, where, you know, the way you feel about it at 51 is a whole lot different than the way you feel about it at 17 with somebody like Trayvon Diggs.
Dude,
I was even scared of Chase on.
Yeah. It's insane how much better I felt about Diggs at 51 as opposed to 17. Or even like 25. Like, as a first-round pick, I'm like, I don't know, guys. And at pick 51, I'm like, this is the best pick that's ever been made.
Well, we knew this draft would be like a little different than maybe drafts in the past because of everything going on in the world. But I walked away, this is probably Tuesday night, a couple nights ago. I was going out for a walk, get a little exercise, right? Staying away from people, of course, and I went, I'm an idiot. I don't think I did a good job of talking up the scenarios here. I should have laid out more scenarios for it being possible that C.D. Lamb is a Dallas Cowboy, because if you look at the top 17 picks, there weren't many surprises. Maybe you want to say Andrew Thomas going 4th, but I think people saw him going before the Cowboys picked at 17. Maybe A.J. Terrell flying in at pick 16. It's not like there were a million surprises. Not all 4 quarterbacks went before the Cowboys picked at 17. I kind of went, I kind of got a little bit of regret in the way I talked about how possible will it be to get a guy that you like. It turns out it was extremely possible, and there weren't that many surprises. So, but overall, I feel great about the draft. But for myself and to the draft show listeners out there, I'd like to say I apologize. The CeeDee Lamb thing should have been thrown up against the wall a few more times than it was, and so yeah, I feel bad about that.
You know, I actually. Oh, we all got a lot to say. I love it. Let's go. Somebody go.
I think so. Like, you weren't alone in that, because CeeDee Lamb at 17 just wasn't supposed to happen, and I think you're on it. Where A.J. Terrell was a part of the reason he was there, and Javon Kinlaw was a part of the reason he was there, because most people thought San Francisco, there goes a wide receiver. And so there's CD. And then at 16, a lot of people thought it would be either Kinlaw or Chason. And then at 17, you have your pick of those guys. And, yeah, we probably didn't talk enough. Well, you know what? No, we did, though. We were
did.
In the drum of if one of those top 3 receivers is there, I don't think they'll pick him, but they should. And they should be open to that. So I think we did that. But even the second round, because I know on Thursday night, I made a video on my YouTube page where I was like, all right, let's talk about the second round, and I'd love to present a scenario where Christian Fulton or Trayvon Diggs can be the pick, but obviously that won't happen, so let's be realistic. And then they were both on the board. So, you know, sometimes you just don't know the way these things are going to play out. If I were running a simulation, which I did, 500 mock drafts in the little simulators, if CD gets to 17, I restart it, because I'm like, that's not realistic. If Trayvon Diggs is at 51, I restart it because I'm like, that's not realistic. So you just take your gifts.
Yeah, I actually.
And I think
agree. Oh, go ahead, Kyle.
Go for it, Dave.
I agree with Kavanaugh completely. I mean, I don't think any of us thought CeeDee Lamb would be there, because I think we would all agree he was the best receiver in the class. I think the Cowboys thought that as well. Yep. He was number 6 on their board. I think he's a top 10 consensus player. But we did talk a lot about the prospect of the Cowboys could be faced with a choice between a receiver who is the best possible player and a defender who really meets what they feel like they need. Like, I feel like it's set up really well where they might have had a choice between a receiver and Chason, or a receiver and Fulton or Diggs or Terrell, whoever you want to say. We just didn't think it would be CeeDee Lamb, and I think that's actually fascinating. I was talking about this on Twitter yesterday. If the choice is between Ruggs and Chason, I won't say Judy, because I think they probably would have picked Judy, but if it's Henry Ruggs and Chason, do they do the same thing? I don't know the answer. It's interesting to think about.
I agree with that completely, and that's kind of where I was leading, is the fact that it brought up that best player available debate. But if it would have been another wide receiver, would it have been a debate? Would it have still been Chason and you would have still gone with need? I think it was the fact that CeeDee Lamb was so highly elevated on their board, the fact that he was the number 6 overall player. He was number 1 on their board in terms of wide receivers, and he was number 1 on all 4 of our boards as a wide receiver. So the fact that he fell was surprising, but to KT's original point, the fact that he fell wasn't necessarily as uncommon as you would think. You see it every single year. One of those top players ends up falling into your lap, especially right in the middle of that first round. There are so many different scenarios with different players. I thought it would be one of those other quarterbacks. Maybe a team trades up to go get Jordan Love as the 4th quarterback in the top 15 picks. I thought that would have been the thing to push it, but I think it was the A.J. Terrell. I think it was the pick that the Raiders made selecting Henry Ruggs. Even the Jets going with an offensive tackle at 11, I think, contributed to the fact of CeeDee Lamb actually being able to fall in their lap. Now, with all of this fun, you still got to find a place to put him on the depth chart. And right now it says, hey, he's your number 3 receiver, right? I'm going to bring up the question. You've got sky-high expectations. You've got 2 1,100-yard receivers on your roster already. Is it possible that CeeDee Lamb is that number 2 target instead of Michael Gallup? And we'll throw Amari Cooper in there as well. It doesn't matter. Is there a chance he's the number 2 receiver on the Cowboys this season?
I went on record of saying that I think that a year from now, CeeDee Lamb is going to be the number 1 receiver on the Cowboys.
Wow.
And going into this year, and yes, I get it, $20 million guy is on the other side, but I think CeeDee Lamb brings a level of consistency that Amari Cooper.
Well, I think that is where he will be. And for this year, I think it's a great conversation and debate, but I don't have a strong opinion on it. I think all three of them are going to be on the field the vast majority of snaps, and coverage dictates where the ball goes. But I think CeeDee is going to do an incredible job of building trust with a quarterback because of his catch radius and what he does with the ball after. So I would not be surprised at all if we referred to him as the number 3 going into the year, and a few weeks in we're like, oh, just kidding, he's 2 or 1.
I mean, you can call me a coward if you want to, but I don't see why you have to have a stance on this. I looked this up yesterday. They were in 11 personnel 61% of the time last year, and I bet that'll go up this year, especially when you have a guy like CeeDee Lamb on the roster. So you're talking about 65% of the snaps where all 3 are on the field, and I would assume, maybe I'm wrong, but I would assume CD is, he's probably going to spend the majority of his time in the slot because I think he can do that the best between him and Cooper. So, I mean, he'll be third, I guess, in name just because you typically think of your slot receiver as the third receiver, but I just think of it as all one big group. I don't really feel why you have to distinguish between the 3 of them, honestly.
And if health is good for all 3 guys, I don't think it's crazy to say that you have 3 guys in your wide receiver group with the potential of having 70 to 75 catches. That seems like a lot, and I know there's targets for Zeke. I know there's going to be targets for Blake Jarwin, although I could see Jarwin having less of an impact in terms of total number of catches than Witten had. I think it's a lot to ask of a rookie wide receiver to come in and catch 70 balls. I'm not doing that, but I mean, the upside here is outrageous. And the types of ways you can get all of these guys the ball, especially Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, the types of ways you can get them the ball, whether it's down the field or whether it's short, screens, there's so many things that you can do to kind of get the passing game going now. And this is kind of why I'm glad that they weren't scared to pull the trigger on CeeDee Lamb, not only because of him, but just the offense did need another wide receiver. If we came out of this draft without CeeDee Lamb, let's say we got Chase on and Diggs, we would be going, well, who's our slot wide receiver? And maybe they addressed that position during the draft. But now my biggest question is Tyron Smith's back. And who's going to win the left guard and center and get all that figured out. But my questions are now about the offensive line, and they're not about any of the skill position players. And I think that's huge. In this day and age where the NFL is, you don't need to have questions about your skill position players. You need to know what they can do and have confidence in them.
It's really crazy to me, and I think 95% of people love the Lamb pick, but there have been some people that they needed defense, they had to draft a pass rusher, they had to do this, as if receiver was not a huge need. The depth chart behind Gallup and Cooper's terrifying. It's absolutely scary, and so people acting like this was a luxury pick, I think that's insane, because you need 3 receivers in the modern NFL. You need 3 good receivers, preferably. So I never really understood that. And, I mean, if you go back and look, let's say they pick Kayvon Chase on. Your options at pick 51 were Denzel Mims, which that'd be fun, and Van Jefferson. Mm-hmm. And your options, if you wait until the 3rd round, it was pretty much just Devin Duvernay or bust. So I feel way better about getting CeeDee Lamb and figuring out the defense later. And that's, not a knock on Denzel Mims. He's a good player, but I'd way rather have CeeDee Lamb.
Well, he's the top receiver on all of our boards. I think we would all rather have CeeDee Lamb just because of the fact that he opens up such a possibility on that offensive side of things with Kellen Moore. And I'm excited to see what kind of influence Mike McCarthy has on this offense as well, because in Green Bay, he used a lot of those 2 tight end sets. Now you don't necessarily have to use a 2 tight end set. You can throw 3 receivers out there with Blake Jarwin and Ezekiel Elliott and have some fun at the skill positions. Now, before we take our first break, I do want to address the defensive side of the football because that's what the Cowboys did in day 2. They took Trayvon Diggs at pick 51 in the second round, Neville Gallimore, the defensive tackle out of Oklahoma, in the third. And where do these guys kind of fit in the rotation is my biggest question. When we're talking about the depth chart at receiver with CeeDee Lamb thrown into the mix, where do these two guys fit? Because cornerback, you needed to double dip at corner. They did that. They took Reggie Robinson the second and the fourth as well as Trayvon Diggs in the second. And then you add to that beefed up defensive line with Gerald McCoy, Dontari Poe. Now you throw Neville Gallimore in there. Where do you guys see this kind of playing out, and where do you expect these rookies to land when it comes to the depth chart?
I don't want to put unfair expectations on anybody because after the draft I said however Trayvon Diggs ends up, he ends up, and you don't worry about it. And a year from now he'll be a starter because so many people's contracts will be up. But as of today, I'm buying the talk of Cheeto potentially getting a look at safety because every corner that they're bringing in looks the exact same. They're all 6'1", 205. That is their corners. They got the long arms. Cheeto doesn't. I think that's the route they're going. So now I think Trayvon Diggs is going to come in and he's going to start. And I think that this team is going to play a lot of press. And according to Pro Football Focus, Trayvon Diggs was the best in the country at press man last year. So I think that it fits. It's really weird. I said this on radio yesterday. Will McClay was most excited by Mike McCarthy because he said, players over scheme. We'll make the scheme fit around all the good players. But at corner, they're not doing that. At corner, they clearly have a plan that this is what we want you to look like because this is what we're going to do. And I'm okay with those two conflicting ideas somehow. So I think Diggs is going to be a starter. I think Gallimore is going to be Gerald McCoy's primary backup and play probably 30 to 40% of the snaps. I think Reggie Robinson will be a special teams demon. He blocked a kick every year at Tulsa, so I think he'll do that and potentially help you in the secondary as a rookie and hopefully be a starter a year from now. So I think they had a good draft that a year from now, man, what if Biotish is the starter? What if they're pulling 5 starters out of this draft? That would be absurd.
It would be nice. I'm not that ready. I'm not that ready to go there. I agree in theory with everything that you said. I wouldn't be surprised if Cheeto winds up at safety. But I also think you probably want to see these guys on the field. Like, coaches don't like to say anything publicly, but it's pretty easy to recognize when a guy is ready and when he's not once you get on the field, especially from their standpoint. So if when they finally get on the field, whenever that is, if Diggs is just looks like the guy, I could see him starting, but I'm not ready to say that yet because I don't think they're ready to say that. I think you want to see how up to it he is. I wouldn't be surprised if he's like your utility cornerback. Byron kind of started his career as the jack of all trades at everything. He did a little corner, he did a little safety, he played a lot of dime and nickel back. I could see Trayvon doing that if he's not ready to start right away. But, I mean, if he hits the ground running, let's crank it up. Let's go.
Yeah. And I also, want to commend them for the signing of Anthony Brown, which gave them a lot of leeway. And I know, bringing in Darryl Worley is going to change things, and Maurice Kennedy. They've done a lot of things. But I really love that Anthony Brown signing just to allow you to have a little freedom to operate in the secondary. I'll move to the defensive line for this discussion. I think Tristan Hill is on the clock. I think if Tristan Hill, assuming, and I'm making a bold assumption that training camp starts on time, Tristan Hill, you are promised nothing. And I think Neville Gallimore could come in and win a job there. I think Antoine Woods would still be on the roster. But I think Neville Gallimore is a backup DT on this team right now, and Tristan Hill is not. And that's feels a little strange to say maybe when one is a third-round pick and one is a second-round pick, but I think that's something that's a legit thing that's happening. I think you have a third-round player, Neville Gallimore, will be a rotational. He's your backup 3 technique, day one is the way I feel about that. And we'll see where Tyrone Crawford fits in the mix. I'm sure they'll probably try to keep him at defensive end, but I'm not counting on him for anything just because hip injuries are difficult. Nye is a rotational pass rusher and the likes of Dorrance Armstrong. But can he give you more than Dorrance Armstrong did? That's the type of thing you'll be looking at there. So that's my thoughts on the D-line right there. Tristan Hill is on the bubble, in my opinion.
Well, in Gallimore specifically looking at that 3 technique side, it makes you look like you're really thin. And when it comes to nose tackle, you've got Dontari Poe there, and Gerald McCoy maybe could slide over and play that, but I think overall nose tackle looks a little thin, so that rotation starts to kind of get crucial for the middle of that defensive line. But as fun as it is looking over, what was that, KT?
So we got Antoine Woods still, right? So
that's fair. At the moment, have they actually?
He has not signed his exclusive rights tender. I was gonna say, I mean, I think there will be a nose tackle on the team that's not currently on it, whether that's Antoine or whether they get another guy. I think they'll probably sign a vet, before they go to training camp.
That's kind of the thought process around really a thin spot on that defensive line, even with the rotational purposes that you have some of these guys for. Now, as fun as it is, kind of going over and saying how this draft is a win, is it really a win yet? We'll discuss that and more coming up next here on the DallasCowboys.com draft show as we address Twitter on the 20 next.
I'm Jay Novacek, former tight end for the Dallas Cowboys. Back in the day, I was the guy who always got the tough yards, and that's why I run with John Deere today. In fact, I have a John Deere 3025E tractor that can handle any yard work I need to do, even the tough yards way out back. So if you have 1 acre or 1,000, John Deere has the equipment that's just right for you. Visit a John Deere dealer today and run with us. We are the official tractor provider of your Dallas Cowboys.
Essilor is a proud sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, helping fans see more and do more with our best vision solutions. Our lens technologies reveal a world more beautiful than you can imagine. For a limited time, get the Essilor Next Gen offer. When you buy the latest generation of Transitions lenses with select Essilor lenses, you can choose a second pair of clear lenses for free with qualifying frame purchases. Restrictions apply. Find a participating eye care professional by visiting EssilorUSA.com. Essilor. See more, do more.
Want to use what the pros use? How about the official men's skincare brand of the Dallas Cowboys, Jack Black? Right now you can get the Jack Black Starter, a curated collection of Cowboys locker room favorites for just $10 with free shipping. The starter includes 4 Jack Black skincare favorites plus a full-sized intense therapy lip balm. Go to getjackblack.com/Cowboys and use the code word TEAMJB. That's getjackblack.com/Cowboys. The Jack Black Starter, $10, free shipping.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not to...
Right above the subway!
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus.
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store to find out how to get one of our popular smartphones for $0 down, based on GWS One Score September 2019.
This is the DallasCowboys.com draft show.
Stark along 3rd and 3, and another interception thrown right to Diggs. And Diggs, who had a fumble recovery for a touchdown last week, has a pick 6 this week.
Up and throws, and it's intercepted. Trayvon Diggs.
Cowboys' second-round pick, Trayvon Diggs out of Alabama, providing quite the conversation when it comes to that corner spot heading into the 2020 season. Welcome back into the Dallas Cowboys draft show, final draft show here of the season, and until that bye week comes up later this fall. Kyle Yeomans, KT, we've got Dave Hellman and Jeff Kavanaugh here as well. Time now for some Twitter on the 20.
Twitter on the 20.
And, of course, Twitter on the 20 and the entire draft show brought to you by Miller Lite, our great draft partners who had a lot of fun this past weekend, no doubt about it. But we're going to start things off with a good buddy of ours, especially a good buddy of KT's. We've got Jeff Skinwade on Twitter, and he comes out and he says, this is a crucial question, by the way, and he says, when is a quote-unquote safe amount of time to properly evaluate the success or failure of a team's particular draft? And I think this is especially important right now, as we're extremely high on the entire draft class. We're extremely high after the past weekend, but when can we really evaluate whether this is a thumbs up or a thumbs down, guys?
3 years. I think 3 years is the generally accepted time frame, and I think that's right. I think once you get 3 years in the books, you'll know, has the guy turned into a starter yet? Is he a quality starter? Is he a rotation piece? I think after 3 years in the league, you'll have a pretty good handle on where these guys are, unless he plays quarterback, and then the entire world will still debate it forever.
Yeah, good point. It's definitely going to take some time. I thought Will McClay had an awesome line when he was on with Jeff on 105.3 earlier this week, when he was like, let's call it a well-executed draft. We'll know if it was a home run when we're actually at the plate. I would even say I would say 2 years, because, you even think about it. Byron Jones became an all-pro in his 4th year, which, totally justifies the pick. It was a good pick, but it's a little disappointing that the Cowboys needed 3 or 4 years to get that type of production out of their first-round pick. I think in this age of the NFL where, quarterbacks used to sit for like 2 years before they played. Now they're in the starting lineup right from the jump. So if your guy's not contributing after 2 years, that's pretty disappointing. Not to say that it can't work out. Byron Jones is proof of that, but 2 seasons is where I start to make my judgment, I think.
So I think, everyone wants you to have like a super hot opinion here, but I'm going to kind of ride in the middle. I think it also depends on what your franchise is doing. A couple things. What's your franchise's draft history? Do you have a history of doing a pretty good job of the draft? Maybe I can, cut you a little slack if you mess up 1 year. Things like that. But 2, it's going to be a little different. This Cowboys team is close. They added good players who can help them now. So I can judge this draft at 3 years from now, 4 years from now, 5 years from now. Sure. Think about a team. I'm not saying this because I follow them, but if I'm the Packers and I'm close and went to the NFC Championship game and I mailed in a draft like they did last week, I think you can judge that draft the day after the draft ends. I think you can judge that draft pretty harshly and say, well, are you not trying to help your team win now? And I realize there's a Jordan Love element there, but the whole point is, I think it depends. I think there's whole different types of branches that you can have on this conversation. And if I'm going to give a general safe answer, 2 or 3 years, sure. But I think if you're the Bengals, if you're the Bengals, there's a little more urgency for you to nail a draft. So I'm going to judge you immediately.
Yeah, but and not to go off the rails on a Packer tangent, but that team got a game away from the Super Bowl with what they had. I know nobody is high on their draft. I don't really love it either, but maybe they're right about a lot of those guys and everybody else is wrong. 2 years from now, forget Jordan Love. 2 years from now, DeGuara, the tight end they drafted, and Allen, the running back out of Boston College, maybe those guys are total badasses. Who knows?
I don't think A.J. Dillon's going to be a total badass.
Neither do I, but crazier things have happened. I'm just saying. You got to at least give them... like I said, I think rookie contracts are 4 years, so half of the life of the deal is when you can make a judgment on whether it was smart or not, in my opinion.
Okay.
And it's really easy to judge a draft really early on. Look at Tristan Hill's pick in 2018. People were judging that halfway through the season because, one, he wasn't active, so you could fairly kind of talk about the fact that he wasn't playing and he was a healthy scratch the majority of the time. But you're really quick to kind of tab that 2018 draft as a failure with no first-round pick, and then you have Tristan Hill, but you traded that first-round pick for Amari Cooper, who you're feeling pretty good about at the same time. So you kind of got to give it some time. I think I'm right around where Jeff and Dave are, where it's 2.5, 3 years, where you start to kind of see where things develop. Now, this next question goes a little bit further into the draft, and we go back to the 7th round. This comes from Dustin Lowmiller, and he asks, realistically, could you see Ben DiNucci competing for the backup quarterback job, or is he strictly a third-string or practice squad kind of guy?
The expectation should probably be that he's a third stringer. That should be probably the realistic expectation for Cooper Rush, who's now been in the league for 3 years. So that should be the expectation, but I don't think it's crazy that if he's consistently better than him in camp and he has a nice preseason that he ends up being the backup quarterback. I don't think there's a whole bunch, like there's not anything invested in Cooper Rush. If the guy plays better, I think he could take his job.
Yeah, I think he could. I just don't expect it to happen. And, Cooper Rush has, this is his 4th NFL season, I believe. He's been doing this for a while. My expectation is for DiNucci, if he's really good, I think he would be your 3rd quarterback. There's 2 extra roster spots now. You get 55 guys, so it's a little bit easier to carry that 3rd quarterback if you want to, or maybe stash him on the practice squad. I think DiNucci would have to be an absolute baller to just outright take Cooper Rush's job. So I'm not counting on that, but it's not impossible.
Yeah, I think DiNucci would have to go full Romo in a preseason, to take over Cooper Rush. It always felt to me like they were trying to make Cooper Rush be the next Jason Garrett. So that's always what I kind of felt. But then you get a new head coach in there.
Head coach is joke.
Oh yeah, it was. Look, lowest common denominator, low hanging fruit, whatever.
That's okay.
We'll talk about the Giants draft. We'll talk about the Giants draft in the next segment. A guy like Ben DiNucci, he's got ties to Mike McCarthy. He's going to have a little bit of an advantage. Yeah, I think what's interesting about backup quarterback is I generally don't care about it too much because I'm not counting on my quarterback getting hurt. B, I would say that it's a situation where, again, the pandemic is going to change a lot about how we think about this football team. Like, what if they shorten up preseason and there's only 2 preseason games? That's going to hurt Ben DiNucci's chance of making an impression, I would imagine.
Okay, and kind of going off of that, our next question from Matt White sticks with the quarterback and the backup quarterback conversation, and I think it kind of adds to what KT just mentioned with the fact of the pandemic coming into it. But Matt White asked, Bengals releasing Andy Dalton, would he be a good pickup as a backup for Dak?
If he's making peanuts. If he's going to sign for basically nothing, like I'd love to have Jameis Winston on the deal that the Saints got him at, but I think that's a different opportunity because I think Jameis is out there auditioning to be the next quarterback of the Saints, and I don't think that's what's happening if somebody comes in here. If it's cheap and you can upgrade the backup quarterback slot and that guy's happy being a backup quarterback and knowing that that's what his job is, come on with it.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Do you think Andy Dalton would be okay with that, though?
If he signs, he would. I don't think he would sign here thinking he's going to take Dak Prescott's job. If he does, he's a delusional guy, and that's a weird thing to have in my backup quarterback, so maybe I don't need that.
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to get the Winston deal. That's insane. Like, way to go, Saints. Yeah. That's 1 in a million. But I would be interested in signing Dalton even for, like, cheap for quarterback standards, Like, if Andy Dalton wanted to sign here for, like, somewhere between, I don't know, 10 and 20 million, I don't know exactly what the ballpark would be, but, like, on a short deal or a 1-year deal, I would do it. It doesn't seem like they're using that extra cap space anyway. He's started a lot of games in the league. He's taken them to the playoffs. He went to college in the DFW area. He knows the area. I believe he's got a house here. I would love that. I don't get the feeling that they would do it, and I'd be curious what his price would be. But I would definitely do it under the right circumstances. I think it would be great.
I would say that he's way down on my call list of guys that I would be calling about trying to woo in for a 1-year deal. Because Everson Griffin and Jadeveon Clowney, I'd still be making those calls on the 1-year deal situation. Guys who are clearly not going to make what they thought they were going to make in the market. It's only going to get worse because the economy of the league is going to change just a little bit, slightly. And if I'm Andy Dalton, I'm trying to see if New England's going to have me in for a year, or I'm trying to see if Jacksonville is not fully committed to rolling out with Gardner Minshew. If I'm Andy Dalton, I'm still trying to start somewhere. Not that I think he can do that, but I would still be looking there first. But look, yeah, he wants to come in and work for $4 million or something. Yeah, I'm okay with that as long as I've exhausted all other options. And by that, I mean calling Jadeveon Clowney and Everson Griffin. Hey, guys, 1 year. Let's go make a run. Come on in.
So with the backup quarterback spot, and I know, KT, you just mentioned a little bit ago, normally you don't really talk about it, but with the current Dak situation, the current pandemic situation, right now, if it were today, who would you feel more comfortable with? Cooper Rush, Ben DiNucci, or even Clayton Thorson thrown in there as well?
None of the above.
Yeah,
so you're saying outside hire here?
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm saying that my quarterback is a tank who never gets hurt. I'm not worried about it. Dak.
He got hurt. He's not a tank anymore. We can't do that.
He banged up his shoulder a little bit. It's fine.
He couldn't throw.
He's 26.
He couldn't throw for 2 weeks.
Do you think that they're going to? Do you think they're going to make a real move? Like, do you think they're going to sign Dalton or anybody?
I don't, but I think they might be wise to, because I think the idea that guys are indestructible is cool until they're not. And Dak he's not. Nobody's indestructible, and you'll find it out eventually. And they probably would have been better off with Cooper Rush in that Eagles game if they could do it all over again, because your quarterback couldn't throw.
I don't disagree with you. I just think it's going to be the guys that are here, and that doesn't make anybody feel good, but I'm just gonna roll and say, well, I hope my guy's as durable as he's proven to be for most of his career.
Now, final question. Oh, go for it.
Yeah, go ahead, Kyle. No, we're good. We need to get moving. You're right.
So, final question here on Twitter on the 20, and this comes from Stephen Baird, and Baird asks, he said, what do you project as the biggest positions of need for next year's draft? Now, this is way looking ahead, I understand, but he said he wants to know because he wants some positions and players to watch for the upcoming collegiate season, assuming that it ends up happening. Who are some of those different, or what are some of those different positions of need that you think the Cowboys could draft next year?
Linebacker, safety, defensive line.
I would say...
Oh, go ahead, KT.
Go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead.
Well, cornerback is still going to be a thing because Cheeto and Jordan are going to be gone. Mm-hmm. So cornerback will still be a position that you look to fill. I agree. Defensive line, I think depending on what happens with Jarwin, tight end could be something that they consider as well. But, yeah, I think Jeff kind of named him right there. And we've been talking about safety for years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, safety.
Ooh. Oh, sorry, go for it, Dave.
No, that's a good point. I mean, he's missed games 4 years in a row. I understand the durability concerns with Tyron Smith, but I don't have any indication as of now to think that he's going to stop playing in the next 2 to 3 years. So, yeah, I think that's definitely something they should look at. And again, kind of like what we talked about this year is like, you know, if the right guy's there, or if there's Sadiq Charles is a guy that I would have loved if they had drafted this year if it had fallen that way. It didn't work out. For me, it's edge rusher. You know, and I totally am on board with not drafting Chason. I think Lamb was the right call. But, you know, we all have high hopes for Bradley and Nye, but you don't bank on that. You don't bank on Jalen Jelks and Dorrance Armstrong. Alvin Smith is on a 1-year deal. Also is not technically part of the team right now. So if you're talking, and for that matter, Tyrone Crawford, who we talk so much about, his deal is up at the end of the season as well. So for me, that is the bright red trouble spot that I've got to come out of next year's draft with a playmaker at that position.
I've got 5 names to add to the back half of this question because I was bored the other day and I kind of wanted to see who we would be looking at in terms of a team. So I've got 5 names written down. First one is Alex Leatherwood, tackle out of Alabama, left tackle. It was kind of what I alluded to a little bit earlier. He's one of those potential top 10 picks. Now, I do not expect the Cowboys, nor do I want the Cowboys to be in the top 10, but he's at least one of those top prospects. Same thing with Sam Cosmi, I believe is how you say his name, from Texas. Another guy who played right tackle, but he may even make the switch to left tackle coming up this season. Richard LeCounte, I believe, safety out of Georgia. 50 tackles per season on average the last 3 years with the Bulldogs. He's somebody to look out for. Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State, and LeBrian Ray, defensive end and defensive tackle for Alabama. He can play inside and outside. Had a leg issue last year, but he's 6'5", 292 pounds, and I think he's going to have a breakout year this year for the Crimson Tide. So wanted to throw some names out there. That is going to do it for Twitter on the 20, though. When we come back, we're going to debate whether or not the Cowboys really did have the best draft in the NFC East. We'll discuss that and more when we return here on the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Since 1865, Stetson hats are American-made with pride right here in Texas. And Stetson is proud to be on the field with America's team. Want to show your Texas and team pride too? You can. By purchasing your own Stetson, you can look just like how the flag guys do on field at every home game. Stetson hats, the official crown of all self-respecting Cowboys, and your favorite football team. Get yours today in the Stadium Pro Shop or at Stetson.com.
Your new apartment's big. Such a great deal.
It's okay.
Just okay? What's not to...
Right above the subway!
Well, I bet you don't even notice it after the...
That's my neighbor, Angus!
A deal that's just okay is not okay. Get a great deal with America's Best Network. Come into an AT&T store to find out how to get one of our popular smartphones for $0 down. Based on GWS One score, September 2019.
Essilor is a proud sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, helping fans see more and do more with our best vision solutions. Our lens technologies reveal a world more beautiful than you can imagine. For a limited time, get the Essilor Next Gen offer. When you buy the latest generation of Transitions lenses with select Essilor lenses, you can choose a second pair of clear lenses for free with qualifying frame purchases. Restrictions apply. Find a participating eye care professional by visiting EssilorUSA.com. Essilor. See more, do more.
So, you're shopping, and that's when you see it. Aisle 23. Dr. Pepper stacked from top to bottom as far as the eye can see. The phrase too good to be true comes to mind, yet there it is. A rich, delicious Dr. Pepper paradise. Wait, did that can of Dr. Pepper just open itself for you? They all are. As if to say, so nice to treat you. And even though it feels weird to talk to a can, you pick one up and say, it's so nice to be treated. Dr. Pepper, so nice to treat you.
This is the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show.
Some highlights from our third-round pick, Neville Gallimore, bringing us into our final segment of the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show this season. It's a little bit sad that the draft is now in the rearview mirror, but it's happy because, hey, the draft was well executed, in the words of Will McClay, and we have a lot to talk about moving forward into this 2020 season. But we've also got a lot to talk about when it comes to the NFC East and the drafts that were had by our divisional rivals when it comes to the Eagles, the Giants, and the Redskins. Kyle Yeomans, KT, David Hellman, and the great Jeff Kavanaugh here for the DallasCowboys.com Draft Show. Let's start with the Eagles. They had an interesting draft, and they were very angry at the beginning of it. Should they be angry, though, when it comes to Eagles fans, whenever you look at guys like Jalen Reagor, Jalen Hurts, Kayvon Wallace, Prince Tega Wanogho in the 6th round, by the way. A couple guys in there scattered throughout that can make an impact. What do you guys overall think about what the Philadelphia Eagles did in the draft?
I think Eagle fans are going to do what Eagle fans do, which is be mad at stuff, because it's kind of what they do. And I think it's kind of dumb. I think the Eagles had a draft that makes a ton of sense. For instance, I think that if you have a quarterback, let's say, miss 4 games in a year, I think you have a better chance to win those games with Jalen Hurts than you do with Jordan Love. So they used a pick that was more than 30 picks later for a guy that I think can help you win tomorrow if your quarterback gets hurt, because he's willing to use his legs and carry the ball 10 to 15 times a game. You can simplify a game plan. He can help you win. And your quarterback has shown that you need somebody like that on your roster. So quarterbacks are so valuable if they ever have to touch the field. The odds are Jalen Hurts is going to have to touch the field, which makes him more valuable than anybody else you were going to pick in the 2nd round. And I think everybody got mad about the Jalen Reagor pick because everybody just reads mock drafts. Everybody reads mock drafts, and they kept seeing Justin Jefferson, and so people got excited about that. Rager was my 4th wide receiver on my board. Jefferson was my 6th. So I think they made a good decision. But I think a lot of fans, not everybody has the time or the want to or the access to study the players on their own. So I think a lot of people were getting excited about a certain name, and he was available, and they didn't pick him, and so they assumed the other guy's not good at football. And I had Rager rated higher as a prospect than Jefferson. So I don't think anybody in the East had a bad draft. I think Davion Taylor, the linebacker out of Colorado, in the 3rd, and Kayvon Wallace in the 4th are good picks at good value. John Hightower, the Boise receiver, in the 5th is good value. The Eagles, I think, had a fine draft. You know, if you're letter grading it, I think that's a B, B+, something like that. And I know they're just getting killed because they picked a quarterback. Your team needs to care about backup quarterback. Your quarterback gets hurt.
Not only that, but and I keep saying this, like, the more I think about the Hurts pick, the more I like it, to be honest. Like, I don't understand how Eagle fans have so little trust in Howie Roseman. Like, the guy put together a Super Bowl winning team. He's done so much smart stuff. He traded up to get you wins. He makes deals during draft weekend all the time to improve the roster. By the way, they went and got Marquise Goodwin during the draft, which helps them in the short term. Smart. But then you have a creative coach like Doug Peterson. Jalen Hurts can be insurance for Carson Wentz. But on top of that, he can do, like Jeff said, he can do stuff as a runner. He could probably do a little, nothing crazy, but a little bit of receiver work, some read option stuff. I think it's really smart. And then on day 3, they just threw numbers at their problems. Like, they drafted 2 receivers. They drafted 2 linebacker-type players. They drafted 2 offensive linemen. If even, 2 of those guys hit, let's say if John Hightower hits and Jalen Rager's a good player, then your receiver core looks pretty good for the foreseeable future. So they're getting killed right now, and I won't be surprised if they look really smart in 18 months.
Well, they have a type, don't they? Rager, John Hightower, Quez Watkins, who's more of a, fringe roster player right now.
Yeah.
They have a type, speed guys. And they'll all mix in. They've already got, Deshaun Jackson on the team who can still run a little bit. And then trading for, Marquise Goodwin, as you said, really it's just Arcega Whitesides. They're only kind of slower types. They're trying to get fast. And I like when NFL teams in this day and age try to get fast. I think that's an important thing to do. So, no, I thought they had a fine draft. Again, with me, Jalen Hurts, it's not what I would have done there. I understand the rationale behind the pick, but I was probably lower on Hurts than maybe a lot of other people. But yes, they did have to, approach backup quarterback. There's no denying that at all. It's just, can you get by with Nate Sudfeld or Kyle Lauletta? They obviously feel like they don't. But that's where Andy Dalton's become available and things like that. If you wanted to go that route, I would have probably got something, in the second round that could help in another area. You look at their defensive line, they did so good in free agency as well. Getting Javon Hargrave to play right next to Fletcher Cox, that's just really good work. So I think the Eagles are going to be tough. I still think the Cowboys are the favorite to win the division, but I think the Eagles are going to be tough.
I think Howie Roseman is one of 5 GMs where if he does something, I just implicitly trust that it's probably smart. Not everything that they do is going to work out, but his track record since he got the job back from Chip Kelly is pretty damn good. So I don't get why everybody's hating.
Well, going off of that, do you guys want to go to the opposite side of that spectrum and go look at the New York Giants and see what they did in their draft? Or where are we going at with that? Because you've got Andrew Thomas, Xavier McKinney, Darnay Holmes. Those are all great names, but was the value correct for each one of those picks?
Probably. I think the Andrew Thomas pick is the interesting one because a lot of people didn't have him as their top offensive tackle. But I think I could see how a team would trust him the most out of all of the offensive tackles. You're a 4-year starter at Georgia that just kept getting better. And Xavier McKinney at number 36 overall, I think that's right about where he should have gone. I could have seen him going just a little bit earlier. I don't love the rest of their draft, but I think they picked 2 guys that are going to be rock-solid starters for at least 4 years on their team. So I won't kill the Giants draft either. Again, I don't think there was a bad draft in the East.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, who knows how much influence Jason Garrett has at this point in his Giants career, but I don't know. Andrew Thomas just feels like such a Jason Garrett pick. Like a steady 4-year starter. I can just imagine Jason Garrett being like, we really going to gamble on somebody's upside when we've seen this guy just kick ass in the SEC for 4 years? So, maybe another tackle in this draft class has a better career, but I bet Andrew Thomas starts and plays well for a long time in the NFL. And I hate the McKinney pick because the Giants made it, but I like that pick a lot. I mean, that's right where they got Landon Collins out of the same school a couple years ago. That worked out pretty well. I don't know if Xavier McKinney's as good as Landon Collins, but that value for that player is great. I'm with Jeff. I don't have a strong opinion about the rest of these picks. I don't know if Peart from UConn is going to be anything crazy, but those first 2 picks seem pretty nice.
Well, they have some older guys in the offensive line. Kevin Zeitler, the former Browns great, is getting older. Nate Solder is getting older. Matt Peart, the 3rd round, that's excellent value. I liked him a lot, the Connecticut offensive tackle. Shane Lemieux in the 5th round. To me, like, those are your Solder and those are your Zeitler replacements. Like, you're already gearing up for when these teams. It's more of a building for the future type draft in terms of how they dealt with the offensive line a little bit. Obviously, Xavier McKinney will come in and likely start. And I like what the Giants have done, too. They added some help on defense. They signed Kyler Fackrell, who can help off the edge a little bit as a pass rusher. He'll probably start for them. I know he'll play in a 3-4, and sometimes he can play a little coverage as a linebacker as well. And then, they signed Blake Martinez as well from the Packers to play in the middle. But look, they want to run the ball, and they want to protect their quarterback who got killed last year. So those are 2 ways to start working on that. Draft offensive line. I don't always agree with their direction. I would have probably tried to add something to that wide receiver core. Like they're asking a lot out of Corey Coleman right now going into this year. But if you look at what they got last year, Golden Tate is going to give you what he gives you if he can stay healthy. Sterling Shepard got hurt a little bit last year, but if he can stay healthy, we know he's solid. And then Darius Slayton had a great year. Like he's got wide receiver number 2 upside. So they got 3 guys who have this kind of like upside to kind of be like a number 2 type wide receiver. They didn't get that number 1 wide receiver type. Man, offensive tackle was a dire need. They did not want to start Cameron Fleming at left tackle this year and let Daniel Jones get killed again. They just can't do that.
That's probably...
And they address the needs whenever it comes to... Go for it, Dave.
No, go ahead. Who's got the worst receiver core between the Redskins and the Giants? Because obviously the Eagles and the Cowboys are both, I think, better than those 2.
Yeah.
Redskins' second wide receiver is, either Kelvin Harmon or Trey Quinn from SMU.
Yeah, I think I give the Giants the nod over Washington. That's not a super inspiring group over there.
Yeah, just barely though. Like it's not a convincing win in terms of the wide receiving core. But what I was going to say was just in terms of the offensive line. I mean, 3 of their first 5 picks when you're talking about the Giants were from that offensive line side of things. Matthew Peart in that 3rd round, like KT mentioned, and Shane Lemieux. I mentioned this on the draft coverage, but going into the 2019 drafts or college football season, rather, he was heralded as one of the maybe 1st round, 2nd round locks in the offensive line. Didn't have a great 2019, and so he fell all the way to the 5th, but I still think that's a magnificent value in a guy who's a little bit of a project but could fill in and be an admirable starter for a long time. Now, you mentioned the Redskins there, Dave. Chase Young, Antonio Gibson, Charles, a couple of their overall, I guess, highlights from the draft. What are we thinking with having to face Chase Young twice a year? That's not necessarily what you want, but they did go out and get Antonio Gandy Golden from Liberty to try and beef up that wide receiver core. What do we think about Washington's draft?
Honestly, top to bottom, it's probably my least favorite group from rounds 1 to 7, but it has the best player in the draft, so they get credit for that. And drafting Chase Young is a no-brainer, but they still got him. He's still going to be rushing the passer for at least 5 years. So that's a win in my book. But then, I don't know, Antonio Gibson, pick 66 seems a little early. I love Sadiq Charles as a player, but he comes with off-field concerns that you have to take seriously. He only played half of last season for LSU. I wonder if he can stay on the straight and narrow with the Redskins. So, your top 3 picks. They didn't have a second because of their trade last year for Montez Sweat. So your top 3 picks, you might only have Chase Young as your sure thing. So I don't love that, but again, Chase Young is a pretty nice thing to have.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was going to say 3 of their 4 top picks carry pretty large elements of risk. Antonio Gibson, how are you going to use him? Is he playing receiver? Is he playing running back? Is your offensive staff equipped to use him properly? And was 66 too early? Sadiq Charles. All of the things that Dave is talking about. Is he going to be able to just show up and be a pro? Maybe you got a steal. Maybe you got somebody who's not going to make it. And Antonio Gandy Golden, who I liked his tape, but the 40 time at the Combine and then the fact that you played at Liberty, like there's an element of risk there. So the Redskins, to me, are the biggest wild card, where they might have hit a home run with their first 4 picks, and they might have whiffed on 3 of the 4.
They're weird, right? Like, are they going to run Adrian Peterson back out there again? And obviously, they'd like Darius Geis to get healthy, and you know, there's a lot going on with their training staff and his health. Terry McLaurin, though, had a great year. And I think what I would say about Antonio Gibson, I know he's a different build, a little bit bigger, but he's a guy, I think, who they might be looking to play that kind of Chris Thompson role that was so excellent for them, years ago. He's a guy that no matter what, they're going to find a way to get the ball to him 10 to 15 times a game. They're going to hand it to him a few times, but they're going to throw it to him probably 7 times. So I wonder if that's kind of what the role they're looking for him. Another thing I'd say about their draft, when you look at what they did after Chase Young, Sadiq Charles in the 4th round could come start for them. They traded Trent Williams away. He could come start for them.
Might have to.
Gandy, he might have to. And also Keith Ismail is a good player. Like, Keith Ismail is a center that I thought the Cowboys might want to be interested in. And I like Biadish better than that, but Keith Ismail's a good player. Like, they got some pretty good value late in the draft when I looked up and down their board. But, yeah, again, you go, what's going to happen with Antonio Gibson? Was that too early? I don't know. Depending on how they utilize him. He was dangerous. He's got some great highlights. He's got some really good tape, playing in the slot mostly at Memphis. He was very fun to watch, but 66 is maybe a little rich for me. So I think that's going to be the key. They definitely need a little more offensive firepower. We'll find out if he can kind of give that to them immediately. And I can't help but think they're going to run out Adrian Peterson again and play slow ball on offense. That's just not the way you win. You can't win by playing slow on offense. Yeah.
The ageless one. I'll tell you one thing. I feel like me as a Cowboys beat writer, this will be my 8th season covering the team and going to the games. I think of Washington as like the least juicy divisional rivalry for obvious reasons. Like, it's been the longest since they've been good. They almost never beat the Cowboys. Like, I think the Cowboys record against them is like they win like 85% of the meetings since like 2010. But Cowboys O-line versus Redskins D-line is going to be some must-see TV. Like, you add Chase Young to what was already a pretty sturdy group. They traded up for Montez Sweat last year. They've got the 2 Bama guys, Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne. And then hopefully they keep Ryan Kerrigan around because he's one of the most underrated players in the league as far as I'm concerned. That is just scintillating stuff to watch if you're into line play. I can't wait to see that next year.
It's definitely going to be much-watched TV, but before we get out of here, way too early, are the Cowboys the favorite in the division after the draft and the undrafted free agents that they added? Yes? No?
I say no. I say you got to prove it. The Eagles won the division with an incredibly depleted team last year. I will probably pick the Cowboys to win the division because I believe that your record in one-score games evens out year to year. I believe that they're going to win 10 or 11 games, but they should not be the favorite. The Eagles have built that D-line even better. They've addressed their secondary, and they beat you last year with the walking wounded roster. So, no, you got to earn it.
I like it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's you could call it a toss-up. Like, it should come down to those 2 teams. It'll probably come down to whether or not you can win at the link, just like it did last year. On paper, I'd give Philly a slight nod. Go earn it, Cowboys. You were supposed to be better last year, and you disappointed. So, Go prove why we're wrong.
It's an even numbered year, 2020. Cowboys are your favorite to win the division.
Hey, it's been a while since you've had back-to-back winners, so why not the Cowboys? Let's throw that in there. But got a long list of people to thank. Specifically, we'll start things off with Miller Lite. Thank you, Miller Lite, for once again being an incredible draft partner. Papa John's out there as well. Dunkin' Donuts for providing donuts throughout the course of the year. But specifically, it's been an incredible year of the draft show for guys like Derek Eagleton, Nick Eatman, Scott Purcell, Bucky Brooks, Chris Beam, Matt Kent, Caden Gates, Aaron Gonzalez, Alex Lilly, Brian Broaddus, Dane Brugler, and then you three. Thank you guys so much. It's been fun for you guys, or just to be in the same conversation as you three, both KT and Jeff. I've listened to you guys for years talk about the draft, and then Dave, of course, all of your great work with the Cowboys overall. It's been a blast for me this season on the draft show, and I can't wait to do it again.
Great job, Kyle. It was great having you on. Good addition. Love doing this show with y'all. Yeah, successful. And we'll just go ahead and take credit for the Lamb pick, too.
Yeah.
Love you guys.
Yeah, we willed that to happen, right?
Yeah, we made that happen. Team 40 Burger rides.
We'll do it again next year. Get you ready for the 32nd pick in the draft.
Oh, yeah. Wouldn't that be great? That would be great.
I hope that's true. If they pick 32nd, awesome. We might not start the draft show until like late February if that's the case.
Cowboys select Devontae Smith, Alabama wide receiver for Team 50 Burger.
Team 50 Burger. I like it.
Team 50 Burger. Okay, I like it. So we've got to start that trending between now and next April as well. But for everybody I just mentioned, that has been the final edition of the DallasCowboys.com draft show. Until the bye week of this 2020 football season, stay safe, stay indoors so we can have a 2020 football season. And thank you all out there as essential workers as well. So for KT, for Dave Hellman, for Jeff Kavanaugh, I'm Kyle Yeoman saying so long one final time here for the DallasCowboys.com draft show.
This has been a production of DallasCowboys.com and the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
How about this, Cowboys? Yeah!